When Rune Factory 5 was announced for Nintendo Switch, I declared that it was my most anticipated game on the console. I love Rune Factory 4. It's one of my favorite games on 3DS, still is. And I was unbelievably hyped for the return of the franchise for Rune Factory 5 over a decade later. And in the end, I never even bought it because the game was such a train wreck. It was so abominably bad. It was so offensive to me as a longtime fan, right, that I immediately turned my back on the IP and condemn anybody who continues enabling this trash, right? This might be one of the worst things that ever happened to any Japanese franchise. I can't think of anything that was like that has been like as terrible as the Rune Factory reboot with like these newer games because they don't look good, they run terribly, they don't play very well, the dialogue loops, and above all else, they're gay as fuck. So the game completely flies in the face of what made the originals appealing, and the fact that there is no excitement for the future of the franchise says it all. Right? Nobody cared about Rune Factory 5. It bombed to begin with. And now that there's a sequel, confirmed in the last Nintendo Direct, nobody is talking about it at all, right? Nobody has any expectations for it. It is going to be complete trash. And that extends to a lot of other Marvelous products, including the upcoming Pharmasia, which I believe came out today, actually. Uh, Marvelous is a complete train wreck. And it needs to be understood that this is one of those companies that absolutely should not be supported for any reason, purely because of what they did with Rune Factory. And as it so happens, it seems the market has agreed with me. 92% sales drop off. Okay, like just this huge steep decline in recent years after what they did with Rune Factory 5. People were so enthusiastic about this game. People were so hyped for it. People wanted it so badly, and now it's completely done. And it may very well as may have taken the entire company with it, right? These people are still like actively trying to make the woke thing work. They're actively going after like fans. They're trying to tell them what they can and what they can talk about on their official Discord server, and they're refusing to develop what people actually want. Right? They are refusing to listen to their actual audience, and as a result, they've lost them entirely. It's really interesting thinking about this because when it comes to like woke shit in general, like too often we focus like exclusively on these high profile franchises like Star Wars and the like. But when it comes to like smaller niche products like Rune Factory, we see very quickly what the end result is, right? When they tried to fuck with Rune Factory, there was an immediate cutoff, right? An immediate decline in relevancy. Fans didn't buy it, they didn't support it, and if they did, they hated it and would not come back for a sequel, right? Like you drove away the people who love your game, and there really isn't a whole lot of people left. There's a handful of shills and advocates and people who want to like deny the actual reason things have gone in this direction, but the long and short of it is like the actual audience, the people who actually play the games, have refused to support your nonsense. You're done. Like it's 100% over, and there will be no recovery from this until you issue a formal apology and retract everything you've done, which is not likely to happen anytime soon. I'm sure it'll happen like at some point, but for now, like I'm completely content just watching the IP just crash and burn, right? This is something that should never ever have happened. And the fact that it did really just goes to show you just how pitiful the video game dev world is right now. How desperate they are for validation from journalists, how desperate they are to try and subvert expectations and convert people into the ideology. It's failed. Okay, like let's be real here. In 2024, it couldn't be more obvious that Larry Fink's attempts at socially conditioning society to view things through a woke worldview has completely and utterly failed. Not only has it failed, it's been utterly rejected to the point where there really isn't anything that they can do to correct this, right? There isn't any more IP they can ruin. There isn't anything they can do. They can't become more and more extreme without being laughed at, right? All they're doing is just demonstrating why their ideas were doomed to failure to begin with, right? These are people who have access to unlimited funds, who can do whatever they want, who have been working tirelessly to make this happen, and this is what they come up with, like a product that nobody consumes. How exactly is propaganda supposed to be effective if people don't actually consume the product? And this is the thing that really gets me about this because it feels like people were more willing to consume propaganda back in the 60s and 70s, things like the Beatles and Star Wars and stuff like that, Star Trek. People were willing to just eat up all this nonsense back then because they were able to mask it under genuine entertainment. But now that the ideology has taken center stage, now that it's the focus, now that that's the primary thing that these people are concerned about, like it's just it's just completely failed, right? Their propaganda only works, their version of subversion only works when it's subtle. When it's so overt like this, people begin to notice it and it begins to get called out to the point where nothing they really do really leaves much of an impact or an impression at all. So for Rune Factory 5, all you really need to know about it is that it's bad and that you shouldn't support it. You don't really need to know why. You don't need to know what's going on at the company or who have been producing these, making these decisions. Again, you're not going to play Rune Factory 5 because there are so many other better things to spend your time doing. Other games to play, other things to watch, other things to read. You don't have to spend your time consuming a mediocre product if you don't want to. And I think Marvelous is learning this the hard way. I think their attempts at trying to normalize woke culture with their IP has just completely imploded among itself. And I also think this is impacting Square Enix and Capcom and a lot of these other companies. This is simply not going to work. People need to understand that this style of propaganda has ended in a complete and total failure.